practice, practice, practice. Now, I'm sure that makes sense for all of us who played sports in school or watch our favorite sports teams. We're always talking about making sure that they're practicing, because on Sunday or whenever you're watching their game, we want our athletes performing at a very top level. And if they're not, we look right to the coach and we're saying, you're not helping them get better. Well, my question to you, be it if you're leading a team or an organization, or even if you're just an individual on a team, how much are you practicing your skills to make you better? And if you are leading a team, do you have time in your day that you're focused on training and development, or at least watching your team play the game, so to speak, so that you have real information when you're back in your training sessions to help them develop to be better? So today's guest, Jennifer Suzuki, is a top trainer in the automotive space. She helps sales teams accomplish what we just talked about, how to structure their days to make sure training is done off the field, so to speak, meaning before we start interacting with customers, as well as being present to be able to watch your team play so that you can give valuable feedback, and how to deal with being pulled in a million different directions. As a leader, we're all getting pulled away, but how do we get back locked in on that focus? I'm really excited. Her passion is phenomenal. And she's also going to share her journey from where she started selling cars to where she is today. So let's dive into today's episode of You're in Charge: Conversations That Spark Change with Jennifer Suzuki. Okay, Jennifer, thank you for being here. I'm really excited because I've known you and followed your career, and I really do see you as someone who affects change in organizations. You go in and you truly do have an impact to their bottom line. So when you're going in or someone's raising their hand to bring you in, obviously there's something they want to improve on, and it could be either process, it could be accountability, could be training. What are some of the things that businesses are missing that you're seeing when they're doing all this marketing to drive traffic, get people raising their hands, getting them interested, but yet we seem to miss really maximizing those opportunities? So take either of those, all of them. What are some of the biggest things that you're running across that could be easy fixes if somebody was in charge of a team and they're sort of struggling?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And there's a lot to unpack in that question. Let's take it from, the basics. Like you said, they're driving a lot of opportunities through marketing. Any business is putting that money out there, no matter how much it is, it means something because, we got to get a return on investment. But the challenge is that without a process, even if you have the people, if you don't have the process, this is where we get the disconnect. And the process is ever changing. And that is actually one of the things that I think limits a lot of possibilities for growth in businesses today, is not refining the process. And you know what I'm talking about. You've seen some of these businesses where you go into their CRM and you look at some of their sales processes, and some of them are automated sales process in 2021 going into 22 is not authentic, is not human. It is so obvious, and it turns buyers away. And if it is one of the first replies and first impressions of an organization, a person, a professional institution, that one's probably a miss. In any event, that's one small example. Now, some people say, well, Jen, geez, we've got thousands of leads. We got to have some sort of automation. I get it. But frankly, we have a world of AI out there at our fingertips, and AI is driving a more human side response, a more human response, and feels a little more authentic. And I guess my point is this: it's updating sales processes.
Okay. So let's talk about that, because to your point, you open up some of these CRMs and we have our processes built in. Now they can either be, as you were saying, pre-programmed, this is what you send out, or it could be a placeholder said, here's sort of the topic that you want to talk about, your first one. How often do you see organizations do what I'll call spring cleaning? For example, They bring you in and you guide them.
Yeah.
A year from now, 2 years from now, someone else comes in, or they get a new manager and they put theirs in. And it seems like no one ever goes back and says, do we even use this anymore? Then why is it here? Versus someone who's just skimming through going, oh, I've never tried this one before. And you're sending something out that, to your point, it's not connected to what your messaging is today.
Agreed. And things have changed so much. Even when you look at auto responses for after hours, talking about COVID and protocols. I mean, yes, we're still in COVID. Yes, we still have protocols, but it looks dated because that was from 20 months ago, COVID, you know what I
Right.
mean? And then again, it just sort of is a miss from that client experience. To answer your question about spring cleaning, let me say it is next to never, my friend. And that is why we're having this conversation, because it is necessary. In fact, I would be looking at it. I'd be looking at that sales process every 30 days because it matters and you know what, even in just, it's not even just that auto response, it's when it sets up the auto sales process, and it prompts our sales team to do this particular follow-up at this particular time. Oftentimes in that task, it'll have like a proposed template, and that salesperson, if without instruction, they could be new to the business, that template's dated, it's just a miss in the language, the representation of the person, of the business, of what's going on right now. I mean, let's face it, the supply chain in any industry has been impacted. And is that something we need to put out there front and center? I mean,
Right.
People know about it and it's relevant and we got to hit them with it early on. So, these are some of the things that, like you said, spring cleaning is necessary. And it's automated sales tasks. It's the email templates. I can tell you the template list is long and fierce and outdated. And if you ever watch a salesperson do their job, because I'm always looking for efficiencies, I want to tighten things up to make sure that we got a clear representation of a fluid, seamless buying experience, and at the same time representing the character of our company. And when I look at the list of templates in there that someone's got to figure out which one they're going to send, that right there, my friend, is a time stealer, and
Right.
it can impact an organization's success.
So for all of you listening, you can, hopefully you're taking notes and you're going to have a nice list after this, because again, one of the reasons Jen is here is she speaks tactical. So just right there is that idea of spring cleaning. When was the last time anyone looked through and said, it's like doing spring cleaning in your closet. When was the last time I wore this? If I don't remember, make a decision. Do you want to keep it or not? If it's not, get rid of it or donate it. Same thing with your templates or your old processes. Get rid of them and really ask yourself, is this something that we want to share with our customers? So that's number one. Now, number two would be your opinion on this. What I've seen at times is, because we either have different departments, teams handling different parts of the process, very rarely is it connected. High performing dealers do connect it. I should say that's the reason why they're high performing. Agreed. But that idea of one hand doesn't know what the other one's doing, the lack of communication or lack of synergy in types of responses, because the way I may answer something and then I hand it over to you, you're going to have a completely different voice. So let's talk about that. How do I connect if I have a group of business development or BDC folks in automotive, or appointment setters? You have appointment setters in other industries who their job is just to get the person to an appointment and hand it over to a salesperson. How do we connect that? What are some of your best tips to making sure that the departments are connected and talking to each other, to your point, to keep that seamless customer experience versus a customer feeling like I have to start from
over
zero again?
Yeah. Which is a total miss in moving deals forward and getting those online reviews. That's going to drive more traffic. Okay. There's a lot in that as well. So at a basic level, Glenn, we have to try to hire people who care. who care enough to see that there's a problem and do something about it. We have to hire people and nurture people and mentor this team to not only collaborate together, but to communicate effectively amongst each other using the tools that we have at our fingertips. There are plenty of free tools out there to keep us all connected. But if you don't care about that customer experience, you're just banging out phone calls to set appointments and get them on the board. And you don't put a whole lot of notes in the system. You know, when you have that customer come in, knowing that your colleague set that appointment and that customer came in and you didn't put the notes in there about that customer's time in the store, you didn't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are the things that at a base level have to be intact in order for us to achieve, you know, maximum performance.
Well,
And
let me just jump in here a second. But so to that, then someone's okay. I'm in charge of one of those teams. What if my team's doing it, the other team isn't doing it? Or this idea of hiring someone who cares. Okay, I care, but isn't that more what you're talking about? Accountability up the line? Because eventually, if no one cares above me, isn't that a trickle down effect where someone's going to turn around and go, well, why am I busting my ass if they're not busting their ass? I'm not going to do it anymore. So where does that, where is the, who's in charge of connecting all this and making that accountability of caring?
I mean, Glenn, that's a really good point. And that's why I mentioned mentorship. It's a piece that's missing in a lot of sales teams. We hire people to fill seats, and most people don't get the knowledge, the education on what the expectations are of the sales process, let alone the circle back and inspection of the process to identify
Right.
misses and strengths. And the misses oftentimes come from not caring enough to put the information in there. On the other hand, it's oftentimes because nobody showed me the process, you know? And so, yes, leadership, mentorship on an ongoing basis is what's going to help people recognize how we do care for each other. And, you know, just to carry that on a little bit further, tools out there like WhatsApp and GroupMe or Slack, I would highly recommend using some sort of tool like this to keep those communications open amongst teams and make it part of the process. Things that you do hold them accountable and things that you do mentor on is effective communications, because when those customers have special circumstances and they're expecting certain things to take place, maybe more so than other customers, if that's not communicated to the front line, who's going to be meeting this person face to face, then we miss once again. Yeah. But you got to care enough to put that message out there to the team so people really welcome this customer.
Yeah. And I think what you're touching on, it goes back to what you initially started with, is this idea of our process is end to end, meaning I always talk about reverse engineering. You know, how do I want my customers to feel when they leave?
Agreed.
Okay, then what does my team have to do to make them feel that way? And then once we have that, we can build a process. Then we can find the technology that supports that. But there is a key point. It's training, but I think we always miss the word and development, right? Development seems ongoing. So when you step into an organization, is it process more, or is it the fact that training, daily inspection, coaching, and development, is that one of the pieces? I find a lot of people do a very decent job front end, new hire training, bring somebody in, but there is no coaching and developing. So what are you seeing out there, or how are you helping solve that problem for your clients?
Here's my experience. And it's managers that are in their roles without mentorship themselves, or without the know-it-all or experience to run a team. They might have been really good salespeople. They were the hitters, and then they advanced into a role without the proper onboarding themselves to be able to develop people. They got
Right.
the other side of the coin, hold profit. They got that part down solid. But when it comes to the other side, developing people, that's the part that seems to be the missing link. When I work with organizations, it's one of my first approaches to the success of our relationship. And I say it all the time. Don't let me train your team unless we train the managers, because if they don't know the process, they can't coach it, they can't mentor it, they can't inspect it. And
Right.
if the sales team knows the process and the managers don't know how to do the process, and I just want you to know there's two very different things here, knowing it and doing it, which
Right.
is our next step with our leadership. And because things are changing so rapidly out there in the sales processes, it is next to impossible. If your finger's not on the pulse, if you're not expecting change, if you aren't looking for change, you know what I mean? You're not going to go out there and do the changes that it's going to take in order to attract business and move deals forward. And I'll give you some quick examples. With supply
Sure.
chain restraints, the way that they are, it's impacting the way that callers call the stores and the questions that they ask. It's creating more objections, in my opinion, than and new objections than we had a year ago, 6 months ago. And I swear, every month it's something new.
Right.
At this point, customers already know it's going to be tough to get the product that they're looking for. Customers already know they're going to be having to be more flexible than usual. They're going to spend a lot more time looking for what they want, and then at sometimes throwing up their arms and just saying, "What do you have?" But
Right.
these impact the sales process, and we have to mitigate some of the risk of losing opportunities by simply having basic responses like, no, we don't have that right now. Actually, no one has it, or we don't plan to get it until Q1. You know what I mean? Like things like this can squash opportunities. Whereas getting back into the doing part of this helps us identify what the real challenges are. Inspecting the doing, inspecting, say, recorded calls in this example, or inspecting the sales process will help leaders see that something is repeating itself and we got to modify the process. But if you're not doing it, and
Mhm.
this is my strongest recommendation to anyone listening that's in a leadership role, get back out there and do the work, because it's ever changing. The only reason why I stay relevant is because I always do the work.
Right. And I think there's a couple things in there that I want to make sure we highlight. One is
Yeah.
that idea of I have my, I'm in the day to day, right? If I'm running a team, you need to be with your team. And you need to be listening to what they're doing. If you're running a sales team and they're engaging, where else should you be? I mean, yes, there will be duties that you have that maybe in the morning I have to be at my desk to generate reports, but eventually, using sports analogies, you need to be on the sideline watching the game. You need to have a headset on, listening to what's going on so that you can make adjustments on the fly. You can, to your point, which I think is a phenomenal point, we have new objections, new questions, new play. We got to go think about what our response is, train on it, then go watch and see how it's implemented. And everyone, to your point, is everyone is on someone else's team. That's something that I always remind people, is that now that I'm leading a team, I'm on someone else's team. Now that means someone above me, because I'm on their team, should be coaching and mentoring me and inspecting me on what I'm doing.
Agreed.
That's the only way you're going to create a successful organization with
It's a
depth.
team.
It's a team.
A team
Exactly.
working for the championship. And the only way that sports team wins that championship is if everyone's training harder than ever together. It isn't just
Right.
one person. It's everybody on the team is training hard every day. And the truth is that we have more time than we ever have. In my opinion, we're selling half as many products that we did in the past, albeit making 3 times the amount of money. But don't
Right.
let that fool you, and don't let your guard down. You want to
Right.
win the championships right now is when you train harder than you ever trained before.
Yeah, someone the other day, Demetrius Naylor, who was on a previous episode, he was talking about that idea of a little bit more every day, and I've done it, and he took this exercise as well, as challenging your team without judgment, to document what you actually do during your day. I mean, all of you, doesn't matter what role you're in, document what you do every hour. And what you'll see is there are times where maybe you're not as efficient or effective, or maybe there's certain times of day that you thought you were productive and you're going, that's really not my productivity time. I'm going to move that task to the beginning of my day because then I'm clear-headed, I'm not as distracted, or whatever it is. But to your point, we have more time than we ever have because of technology. If we plan our day to be more effective, to your point, then you have time to train your team. If you put it on the calendar, if it's important to you, you'll find time to do it.
That's a fact. And it's not only, it doesn't have to be one person's responsibility. It's a team, and that's why any sports team's got more than one coach. They've got trainers for just about every little thing.
Right.
And they work all together. They run those plays. They change those plays, they react accordingly. And that's the world we live in right now. We have to be looking for change and be willing to react very quickly and groom our team to be looking for that change and voicing those changes so we can change the plays.
So let's pivot on that, because there are people who within any team, there are, you have your high performers, your really steady folks in the middle, and then you have people at the bottom, either they're new coming in or maybe someone's leaving.
Sure.
But there is this conversation that's been happening over the last year, this idea of salespeople in businesses, dealerships where you spend a lot of your time, so do I, branding themselves, creating, building my name recognition in my community as the person you should come buy your car from, or whatever you buy or sell. I'm branding myself as the expert. Now, that's not for everyone. I don't think everyone should be compelled to do that. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you think, have you seen it be successful? Is it a distraction? Is it just something that, again, if you're going to do it, has to have a process and accountability? What are your thoughts on this idea of branding yourself in this case, in a dealership?
Yeah. I like this. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. It's the reason why I want to execute a high level sales process for a customer. I want them feeling so high level about everything that I do. The way they feel when they end that sale is they want to run online and they want to post that review and pop my name in it. The more reviews I have with my name in it, I'm going to get the calls. I'm going to get, more business. I'm generating my own opportunities. And anyone out there that wants to be a top performer, I think, has to find a way to separate themselves amongst the crowd at all times, no matter what, and a lot of that has to do with social media. I've seen salespeople now doing really clever, fun, creative TikToks. And to me, that's forward thinking. I wish I was that forward thinking. I like to watch TikTok, but I don't see myself recording myself doing TikToks, although I want to, and I know I should be. But the truth is that that's highly effective for branding yourself and for getting your name out there and attracting business, especially at a time where TikTok is really still in its infancy stage. You have a huge amount of opportunity to showcase your character, and what's important to you and how you do things and how you make it fun and easy, which is what everybody wants, because people are threatened by the car buying process or any high stressful real estate, purchase, for example. But in social media is a huge thing. That's where most people are spending their extra time. And so why wouldn't you want to be there showcasing you and how you do things? And really, again, I'm always saying this, selling is caring. It's about showcasing your character. And there's, how else are you going to do that?
I think that's a great point. I just interviewed Steve Ressler from from Drive Centric, and he talks a lot about video, and he talks about that idea of multiple videos that they can start seeing your character, your integrity, because you can't fake it for 7 videos. You can fake it for one. And I agree with you. I think but to protect the dealership, just as you would, You mentioned it, doing spring cleaning to go through your CRM for any communications that going out, any scripting and messaging. This is the way we want to speak to our customers. I think there has to be a process, a style guide, brand guide, some sort of
Expectations,
guardrails,
rules. Yeah.
right? And then measure, and then watching it so that you say, okay, Jennifer's doing a good job and that's working. I think that's really important. So any of you who are going down that road, either as an individual salesperson, making sure you're communicating with your dealership to say, here are my ideas. Is this within the framework? Or if you're on the other side and you're empowering your team to do this, make sure that you also have a guideline so that one, it helps the team move forward because they know the lane I can play in versus, well, I hope this doesn't get me fired. That should never be in the mind of anybody who's promoting themselves or your dealership.
Yeah, I agree. And I see so many different dealerships doing different things out there. I think younger led stores make it mandatory to personally brand yourself. They show them how to do it in sales meetings. They are constantly talking about how they're going to make the next video funnier. It's part of their culture and it's expectations in onboarding, and it's tied to their pay plan. To me, highly progressive, relevant strategies. And the other dealers that are worried about somebody saying something poorly about them, a salesperson doing something inappropriate, I think you can vet those people prior to them working for you, because we can all stalk somebody online,
right?
Which is, in my opinion, part of the interview process is, who are these people? How do they use their social media? And if it has to be discussed prior to their onboarding, then
Right.
you already know what you're working with.
Right.
But in my opinion, I think that that's progressive. It's necessary. And frankly, Glenn, not a lot of salespeople out there are going to do any of that. They just aren't going to take that initiative. It is high performers who do things a little outside the average, high performers. And they're thinking a little bit differently about how they promote themselves. They're actually thinking about promoting themselves. Whereas a lot of salespeople, they expect their company to bring in the business, and they expect the leads to come and fall in their lap. They expect the customers to walk through that door. And if there's anything we've learned in this current state, is that we can't wait for people. We cannot wait for people. We have
let me just push back or question you on this, because I've always, my brain thinks two ways, meaning that this type of video communication, getting involved with your community, that seems the way it was years ago, meaning they're, salespeople, or they were always out at, golf outings, or they were always out at community events. And whether it would, nobody was paying attention or worried about how many hours you were in the dealership. They were worried about, are you selling cars? And if you said, I have to go out, hey, I'm going to have lunch with this person, they're like, okay, great. Somewhere along the line, it feels like we've said you can't leave the dealership. And so in turn, have we created the salespeople with that environment to go, well, if I can't leave, we've just trained everybody to say, handle everything that we're bringing into you, sit on the phone and go into CRM and call all these people, and then call the people back and call these orphan people, or look out the window and wait for them to come. Don't worry, we'll get them to you, and I'm wondering if we've created our own monster, but now this whole video conversation is allowing them to be present in other people's news feeds, or where other people are, I should say, physically, to get back to some of those old habits of, I don't know the ROI yet today, but are you selling more cars at the end of the month?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. That's true. I mean, I've been in this business for long enough where I was expected, when I was selling cars when I was 18, I was expected to bring in my own business. In fact, this sounds so old school. But we have gotten away from this. I used to take my business card and write, I have a buyer for your car. And back in those days, people would sell their cars on the street. I'm from California. They put their cars on the street and they'd have like these rows of first sales. And I would just put under a window wiper, boom, 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 and wait for the phone calls. I worked in a dealership and that's how I brought in my own business. Today I am, I find myself consulting and suggesting that now we expect salespeople to bring in at least one sale a month on their own prospecting efforts. But I don't think as leaders and mentors, they're talking a whole lot about how a salesperson can bring in their own business. I think that's been sort of a thing of the past.
Well, it's some of my clients, I had heard it, and it's definitely not my saying, but I think it's relevant to this point, is they say, I sell the car, but it's up to service to hold on to that customer till they're ready to come back. I know it's my job to interact with them as a salesperson, to call them up, not just a birthday call, but to check in, see how they're doing, build that relationship. Where I know there are some sales trainers out there that would say that after 3 years, 4 years, if you stay at one dealership and you're selling X number of cars, let's say you're selling 15 to 20 cars a month, you're selling close to 200 cars. That means after 3 years, 600 people in your area bought a vehicle from you. How many are coming back, or how many of those people, to your point, had such great experience you're recommending to them? So do you feel comfortable calling you up to say, hey, do you have anyone, and refer people to you? So you are building that. But I agree with you. We'll talk about how many appointments did you have, all of this, but very few times do I hear anyone ask, how many referrals did you get this month? How many cars did you sell off of referrals this month, as a metric that is to be measured, to be improved?
And I'm going to tie that back to turnover is 78%. And when you have turnover that high and you're not nurturing employee satisfaction, not helping them with everything that we talked about here today,
right,
they bounce, and it gets diluted, I'm sure. I mean, that's my opinion. I work in stores. I mean, that's the real is I don't think that that's a big focal point.
I think it's a few things there. And I think you're on to something. We don't, I taught up at Northwood University, and the young men and women who were in the automotive marketing and management program that I was, teaching, a lot of them some of them were going back to their family dealerships. Some of them were going into the vendor community. Some were going to work in different, but what that exposed them to was the breadth of this industry. A lot of times people go, oh, selling cars. It was always seen as a transitory job, or I'll just go sell cars till I find something else. And I think some of the very larger dealer groups, or those ones that are thinking through this, are starting to advertise the career that you could have in a dealership, not just salesperson, but if you want to go up in management to eventually be a general manager, or you could go into finance, or you could go over here. That idea of, if you come here, we want to hold on to you and we will nurture you. But you're right, there's so many, you're battling that 30-day sales cycle where I need everything now, very high pressure. Mm-hmm. If I don't have a lot of training, or God forbid my pay plan changes, once it was working well, now it's changed. You're right. It's almost, we're wondering why we have this turnover, but we're creating an environment that causes potential turnover. Not to say that we wouldn't have it, but if we could cut it in half and hold on to people, I mean, then you're building your bench. But I think to your point earlier, without that focus of training and developing and really thinking a sports team, and that we have these people on our team, we're going to hold on to them and do everything we can, that if they sort of fail, it's on their time. It's not us. They knew what to do. We coached, we did everything we could do. The talent or the desire just wasn't there.
It's practice. I mean, that's the key word that you put out there. Without practice, people don't get better. Without practice, we can't advance and grow. Without practice, we can't work through some of the challenges that are recessing the growth. Without practice and discussion, we can't see the challenges ahead. We can't make modifications, together. And so it comes with practice. It's like anything. And I think that's actually one of the easiest ways for leaders to make a sharp turn away from this sort of turnover is taking the time to practice. And to your analogy with the sport, I mean, any pro sports team, you don't think they have a practicing schedule? And the guys like Kobe, I mean, these guys came in and just outperformed everybody because they practiced harder than anybody else.
Right. But to your point, they had a schedule that everybody came to. Now, Kobe can stay later, which he was always known to do. But to your point, the other piece to that is, I always say, I ask people, when people bring up the analogy of sports, I'll ask those in the dealership or other businesses I consult for, well, where are you as the coach of this team? Where are you when they're playing? Right? If you ask yourself when you were in sports, right? Did you play sports in school?
I did.
Okay. So what sport did you play?
Well, I swam competitively and water polo and
Okay.
ski team.
Okay. So think about that. Water polo, right? When you had practice, where was your coach?
Right there.
Okay. When you were
Never
playing
left.
games, where was your coach?
Right there.
Okay.
Never left.
Exactly.
In the mix.
So where
Great
are
point.
our managers of teams
Great point. I'm
most of the
using that.
time when the game is being played, which is when I'm dealing with customers? And I always say, yes, there are times where you do need to be off the floor, but they should
Yeah, but you
almost
groom the
be,
other managers to fill in, that's why you have a whole crew.
well, that's my point. They should be
Yeah.
trying to drag you off of you should be like, no, I can't leave versus
Yeah.
sure, let's go,
Yeah.
because that's where they're playing the game. Yeah. But to your point, what I see more of it, they will do some practice in a morning meeting for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's valuable. And that's so good. But the key is, are we transferring it out to when they're playing? And listen, by any stretch, I love managers, and I was managing sales teams, and it's not easy. So please, no one out here listening
Juggling so
think,
many tasks.
exactly, they're getting pulled in a million different directions. I was just with a client the other day, phones ringing. Every 2 seconds, phones ringing, phones blowing up, and I can't even have a conversation. So I get it. But the more that we can try to organize the day, and even if we say, hey, if we could accomplish 20% of what we have on this paper this week, that's great. Now, can we get to 25? There's always going to be fires. But if I could spend that time, even a little bit, even just when I'm walking through the floor, watching what's going on, listening what's going on, versus just making the beeline for the other side, I think that's, what you've been saying is that marries that coaching to the process. So now I can tweak. My team feels that I'm there. Team feels like I'm trying to help them get better. I mean, all of that works really well.
Yeah, you're just making me think about so many things that I coach on with managers, and I mentioned, and this is a good way to sort of, get focused on being in that game. One of the easiest ways to do this, and I actually do this every morning when I'm getting ready, I listen to our clients' recorded sales calls. It helps me. I mean, I could tell you at this time in the stores, most customers are calling the store now. They are not just walking in there. They already are hip to the game and what's happening. And, if anything, I mean, we're seeing an influx in calls because now it's 3 states over. You have the one they want. There's just the sales process is on the phone now more than ever. And it's an easy way to get in there and see what's happening or how people are handling these tougher scenarios, in my opinion. So in the morning when I'm getting ready, I actually listen to recorded calls as I'm getting ready. I'm multitasking. It's easy to do. And in the past, management and they may still have a little PTSD on this, is they would listen to recorded calls. They want to fire somebody. They get them
Right.
all fired up, blood pressure through the roof, and they just want to come in swinging. And I'm like, you can't lead by fear anymore. It doesn't work for younger generations. It doesn't work for people. It's not cool.
Yeah.
But, when we listen to the calls and we think about what are the strengths here? And if I can identify the fact that there is a missed opportunity, it's probably because we didn't practice. It's not that person's fault per se. It's that we didn't
Right.
practice it hard enough. And that's why I can go into the morning meeting. And if I carve out 20 minutes a day to be consistent about education and nurturing employee retention and growth,
Right.
this is a great opportunity. You'll be inspired. Just listen to a call every single morning. You'll be inspired about what to talk about.
Well, if you're
relevant.
searching, to your point, searching
Yeah.
for the good and not
Yes.
just the bad. So that way, and again, taking that responsibility first of saying, if it's not happening, shame on me. Let me go
right.
fix it, until it's as I say, it's not a knowing, KNOW problem. It's a no, because NO, like, no, I don't want to do it. So let me just, let's pivot a little bit, because there is something
Sure.
you just said, and I'm always curious about my guests' journeys, right? So now people see you and you're
Yeah.
very visible out there,
Okay.
and everybody who talks about you, and just from chatting with you now, I understand the passion and the commitment, and you are, let's go, charge up the hill, run down the mountain, all of it. It's just great. But I'm sure people are looking at that and they could be intimidated to say, oh, well, I can't do that. She's special. She's a unicorn, so to speak. So roll me back to here we are, because you said in school you were a competitive swimmer, you did water polo, all of that. So let's roll back to high school, Jen, 9th grade, 10th grade. From that point now, where are the similarities? What are some of the things that they're just baked in you, always have been? But also then, what are other things that you no longer do, or you've evolved into in your journey, along the way, especially as a woman in automotive and sales? Again, I wish we never have to talk about it this way, but it's always fascinating to me about people's journeys through this. So talk to me about that.
Well, I may not have the answer you might have expected. For most of my life, I enjoyed sports, but I didn't see the meaning behind it. It certainly groomed me to know the equation for winning a championship. It's a lot of what we talked about today. It's nurturing, it's practicing, it's wanting it, it's pursuing it. It's realigning, changing the plan, changing the plays, wanting it, going after it. I knew what it was like to win, and I like to win. But I can tell you, anything else in my life, school-wise, I was never committed to. I was a terrible student. I had terrible test scores. When I finished school, I failed at everything. I don't even remember my scores. And I think that's because I just can't admit it because
Right.
they were so bad. Not a single person accepted me into college. And I applied to all the good schools thinking I was a winner. I can tell you that where I am today, after a lot of thought and a lot of work and a lot of therapy, is I am a survivor. I made some hard turns in my life because I was raised upper middle class. I never wanted for anything. And the rug was pulled out from under me. In my senior year in high school, my parents split. That was chaos. And I'm about to go live my life thinking I'm going to college. And everything had been given to me. And then it wasn't. My mom was an alcoholic my entire life. And she is a lot of the reason why I am where I am today, because she made me fight harder than I ever should have. And I respect that, but it was not given to me. So here I am, senior year. My mom's wasted. She's not taking care of me. My dad's left. I have terrible test scores and I'm on the street. I'm about 30 days from being homeless. I don't have a car. I don't have shit. And I got nobody that's got my back. yet I've come from things and I want those things back. And I get a job selling cars. And I didn't have, there was no other option but to figure that out and to make it happen. And I would boil it back to, you've got nothing. What are you going to do? You're on survival mode and you're going to figure it out. And once you know how to figure it out and you see that that winner is inside you and you know exactly how to get there, through fighting, through getting beat down and then picking yourself back up, and you get beat down so many times. I don't care if I get beat down today. I laugh it off because I just know there's something new around the corner, and those things change the way that you make choices and the way that you go about your life. So there was a lot in that I threw down on you, but it wasn't something that I was groomed for. It was that I was left without a choice, and it was sink or swim, do or die. And I had no other choice but to figure out the only opportunity that was given to me and to do it and to go hard. And that was to sell cars. And I did. And I can tell you, I've never left this business, because the one thing it does give back to you is opportunity. It's up to you to carve out your path. Yes, it'd be great if we had mentorship and leadership showing us the way, but frankly, I didn't have that. I didn't expect it either because I didn't know any better.
Right.
But I think if you find a goal and you set the path to it and you fight hard for it and you don't give up, you could achieve anything out there, anything.
That is what I love about that. First, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. But through all of that, I think what many of my guests have sort of echoed is exactly what you just said as well. You can't expect other people to hand you something anymore. It's your parents' job to a certain point to help give you things, but once you get out there, you need the opportunity. And the other thing is there's always opportunity if you're willing to work, if you're willing to fight, if you're willing to,
Yes.
and what I loved about what you said about the sports was you figured out the equation.
Right.
But that's key. That really is special, because the equation is there's a process, there's a goal, has to be a desire, because if you don't have the desire, you're not going to work through the tough parts, right? If you don't, but you're going to have somebody who's going to point you in the right direction. Now, sometimes you're going to have a coach who's going to maybe guide you a little more gently. Sometimes, again, it sounds like when you were selling cars, it's like, here's your book, there's a car, figure it out yourself. But that in and of itself is they gave you the book, right? So there is, but it is that commitment. And to your point is maybe for some people here, they don't have that, their backs aren't completely to that wall where it's like, survive time, but you have to not survive. And I'm hoping, some people don't have to be in that position, but mentally you have to, it's surviving the job, or is this my career? That's what I want to do. Then it's same thing. I'm not going to be in that. And I really think that's important for people to hear, because what you've done with your career is admirable. Where you are, your respect in this industry, the impact you're having on people's lives. You're probably not even, I will tell you that you're probably not even aware of the impact that you've had on all the people that you touch when you work. And I'm sure right now when people hear this, they're going to go, yeah, I'm like her, but I'm just out of high school. I can get to be that. So, just thank you so much for that.
It's my pleasure. I mean, life is hard. And the one thing that I have learned is it's not just about the prize. The prize it feels good. You win, you got the prize. But when you learn to enjoy how you get to the prize, that process, that hunt, that's when you can really enjoy the cycle. And you've got to enjoy what you do. And I'll leave you with this one last thought too. And I had to make some sharp turns in my life and identify who I am. And most people selling cars that I work with, especially younger generations, do not know who they are. And they are still trying to find that person. And I was I find myself having these conversations frequently. Find your passion, find the things you love. For me, my love was not selling cars. It was a means. But during that process, I found my passion, and it drives me every day, and it completes my happiness. And so when things don't go my way, they don't weigh me down, and I can see how it brings me up, because for me, it was about being able to help other people succeed. And I knew that when I became in that role, when I got that role to be able to coach and show somebody else the way, so they wouldn't have to go through the pains I had to go through.
Right.
That's what I enjoy. And that is what I fight for every day. Other people's success. I'm finding it along the way too, but it's about finding a passion, and so you can find your true happiness. And when you find your true happiness, it just shows. And people are attracted to that, and they want more of that. And that's what we want from our customers too,
No, and I think that's what you said. And again, I try to make sure we highlight things so people really remember, because that's just so dense and rich with great information, was that idea of, enjoying the journey. Like, the journey's longer than the prize. Right. So again, if you only are on the prize, the journey is much longer, but every day there are little wins that you can celebrate. There are going to be setbacks, but if you, again, focus back on the equation, focus back on, like, that setback is just, that way doesn't work. It's not a judgment against you. It's either that effort wasn't there. Let me try the effort again. And then you can say, well, you know what, that path's blocked. Okay, let's not try that. Let's try something else. So it's this constant idea of refinement to get to the goal. That's really well said. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it's playing every day with the knowledge and energy you have today. And guess what? Tomorrow I'm going to have more knowledge because I learned something today. The key is not making the same mistake over and over and over again. That's silly. But it's, I remember reading, I can't remember, again, getting older stinks with your brain, but I can't remember if it was Edison who used to say, when something didn't work, he's like, well, that's one less thing that I have to try again. Right?
True.
Versus
check that off the list.
Yeah, he's like, okay, that one doesn't work. Let's try this. That one doesn't work. Eventually it does, versus making a judgment against yourself. And I'm sure, again, during your time, as you joked about therapy and just being with other people, you need to be able to have people around you to help you, or else it can be daunting sometimes. And it starts going away from the actions that I'm doing aren't working, to a judgment about yourself, about it's me and I'm not a good person. And we got to get out of that should be mentality to, no, let's just get back to the equation. Let's get back to the process. Let's get to the path. And if I'm hitting a wall, who do I have around me that I can ask to say, am I crazy for doing this? Or what do you think, to keep pushing you through? As you said, going to your coach after practice and saying, can you help me? And you're doing that for a lot of people, which is, as I said, phenomenal.
I always hope so. I always hope so.
No, don't hope, because see, that's the other thing is you have to, you listen, if you're not going to tell yourself, I'll tell you, you're having a big impact. And as I said, the impact is not just helping people sell more cars. It's that the fact that they now understand the equation that impacts their whole life. It's probably impacting their relationship with their spouse and their family and their friends and their church. Right. And now they're being present more in their lives because you're teaching them how to be present in the interaction of helping somebody with a car sale. But it is that dealing with struggle and stress, and as you're saying, mentoring them. I think you're in the right path for yourself, because the impact you're having is, you can see it. You can see it.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. It's good to hear.
Listen, I know a lot of times we're all, we have the, it's okay, I just doing my job. But, you do need to hear, we all need to hear from people that, even people that are in our circle, other people that are not in the circle, to say, hey, I see you and I recognize what you're doing. And as I said, that was one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on, because I watch you from afar and I see the impact. I see what you do and the hard work that you do and the impact. And everyone who talks about you, I've never heard anyone say anything negative about you, other than she's phenomenal at what she does, and the clients that she works with are lucky to have her working there.
Wow. Thank you so much. I fight for that. I want to do the right thing all the time. I want to see people succeed. I feel responsible for it when they bring me on. So I fight hard, you
Well,
know?
that's
Yeah.
great. That's
Yeah.
great. So, wow. So that's a good way to wrap because we'll get to the wine because I think that's, like I said, I think that ending on that one point about responsibility, great leaders take responsibility serious for themselves and for their team and their habits and their consistency and how I show up every day. That's true leadership. That's different than I think a manager to a leader. Managers show up to manage, leaders show up and are setting an example for others and through their actions, inspiring them to do better. So, all right. So at the end of every episode, as we shake that off for a second here and get back to knowing other things about you, I ask a few questions, just random ones. I call them the one, whatever one word or thought comes in when I ask you these things are random, nothing to do about what we've been talking about. And so I just like to ask some fun questions. So number one, what is something that you are reading or listening to or watching that's inspiring you that you want to share with the audience?
I love Tony Robbins. I was never a huge Tony Robbins fan in the past, but I recently got hip to him and I just love everything he says and does.
I can see how he fits with you because he's
I'll give you one other one, just in case you like this one better. I love Gary Vee. I have always followed him. His episodes make me feel good. They're always on point. I like this guy. I like everything he says.
Well, I think both of them, and I agree with you. I like both of them. I listened to Tony Robbins, way back, and Gary Vee. I've met him a couple times. Spoken at the same conferences, so we were able to chat. Wow. We're both New Jersey folks, so very nice, very approach. He is who he is, meaning that same thing. Who you see on stage. Well, it's just he doesn't change, but it's all very tactical, and he listens. He's very present. When you're talking to him, you're his focus. He's not with his phone up going, hey, what are you saying? Yeah. He's right there. So I think those are really great. Good. We'll put these names in the show notes and things like that. Okay. Next question. Mm-hmm. Traveling. I think you were traveling with your daughters, right? To New York City.
Oh, yes.
So a place that you haven't been to, where would you like to go with your daughters? Anywhere?
I really had my heart set on taking them to Japan this summer.
Mm-hmm.
I had all the plans, but with COVID and the change of events, it seems like it may not be plausible this year. I really want to take them back because I'm half Japanese and my kids are a quarter, but it's important for me that they see heritage.
Yes.
And at least see the differences in cultures. And I just want to give them these experiences in their life. That's all I ever focus on. I'm like, you're not getting anything for Christmas. We're going somewhere.
No, listen, that is one place that I would love to be able to go to as well. So let's see now. Next one would be if someone described you as describe yourself as a cartoon character or superhero, who would it be?
Okay, for once I'm stumped.
I stumped her.
You stumped me. I've never been a TV goer. That's the issue. Don't ask me about TV shows, movies, people, superheroes. I can't even
then let me
up with one.
All right, then that is okay. We will pivot to something else. If I took all of your friends and family, close people who know you, put them in a room and asked them to describe you with one word, what would the one word they would use to describe you?
Care.
I can definitely see that. Okay, last question. We've talked about a lot of things here over this past almost hour. And so if you had to say, Glenn, if there was one thing I hope the audience takes away from our conversation, what would that one thing be?
Do not ever give up. It is very easy to get yourself into a circle of negativity, especially in the auto industry. It runs rampant and it is a it kills opportunities for personal and professional growth. You circle yourself around people doing better than you that can bring you up, not bring you down,
Right.
because you are going to get beat down, but you got to dust yourself off and get back up again. And the more positive people you have surrounding yourself in your circle, that is going to make it 10 times easier to find success personally and professionally.
Love that. Love that. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well,
I'll
first
tell you
off,
what, a piece of advice my mom gave me growing up, I never forgot. And I keep it and I hold it dear to my heart. And I say it frequently. You are who you associate with. That's what my mom used to always say to me. And it's so true.
Yeah, no, I tell my kids that is the same thing. And I always remember that too. And you hear that a lot. I can tell you about where you're going by the 5 people that you spend the most time with, so
Totally.
See, your mother was correct. All right. So listen, thank you so much. This has been such a joy, such a pleasure chatting with you. And I know there's people who are going to want to reach out to you, both, I'm sure, client and dealers are going to listen to this and say, that's who I want to help me. But there's also people who want to connect with you as well, maybe chat with you. How do they find you? Where's the best place for them to meet?
Well, there's several places. You can always email me, jennifer@edealersolution.com. You can always find me on social or on LinkedIn and DM me. I always respond to all my DMs, unless they're ads. Those ones I probably don't respond to.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
Isn't somebody always trying to get you on LinkedIn?
Yes, always. They connect and it's like, can I have 2 minutes of your time now?
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, again. And yeah, but no, anyone that's looking for, advice, or they want to ask me about anything that has to do with anything we talked about today, hit me up on any of those channels.
Right.
That's the best way to go about
and
it.
We'll put them all in the show notes, so this way you can find. But yes, again, thank you so much. This has been phenomenal. Audience, you know the drill. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple, or if you're an Android user, over on Spotify. You can definitely jump onto YouTube to watch our conversation on the YouTube channel. Please, if you did find value today, please share it out. I'm sure there's some folks out there that could benefit from what Jennifer shared today. It means the world to me that you're here. I know there's a lot of places that you can consume content, but the fact that you spend time with Jennifer and myself means the world to me. As always, as I say at the end of every episode, you're in charge. But now Jennifer gave you a few more tips and tools to help you become better, both personally and professionally. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Jennifer, look forward to seeing you in person this year, out on the trails. And thank you again so much. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Yep, you too.